Andrew Wilson absolutely dismantles this communist. Yeah, we're about to check it out. We're about to check it out.
Well, first of all, nice to meet you. Rob Noor actually recommended that I reach out to you because we had a little discussion a couple weeks ago, and scripture came up, and he said you were more qualified to talk about that particular issue. But I guess we should just do first interviews or impressions here. So, like, I'm not super familiar with you. So, how did you get involved with politics, religion? How did you get involved with content creation?
By accident. So I dove in by complete accident. There was lockdowns going on, and I joined a Facebook group, started debating on that Facebook group, and some of those debates began to go viral. It started a YouTube channel, and voila, here I am.
And so, have you always been politically? This is stuff that I just ask everybody that I talk to. But like, what first got you into politics? Was your family political? Was it something that you got from college?
My dad was always. He was born based. He was base conservative. Awesome from the get go. Hates progressive with a passion, which is exactly what he should. And yeah, that's basically. Basically, I come from a long line of conservatives who loathe progressives and communists of all stripes and types.
Well, we share a hatred of communists, but I'm sorry to disappoint.
Come on, dude. Yeah, I listened to your Rob Noor debate. I listened to it. It's like I know that. So here's the tactic, right? I've seen this tactic a million times before from liberal progressive scumbags. It works like this: they go, "Hey, let's do an interview." In order to catch you off guard, and then it really becomes a debate view, right? So that's how it actually ends up going. In this case, they can generally prepare for you, but you're not prepared for them. Having known this tactic for a long time, because I've been in the sphere a long time, of course, I prepared ahead of time and took a look at a lot of your content, including your debate with Rob Noor, which I reviewed live on stream. And nice. Not only were you drubbed thoroughly, as well you should have been for your stupid takes, but on top of that, right, it was very clear that you were guiding the conversation towards a debate, and what you're looking for is an angle to move in on. So why don't we just skip with the bullshit and get right to the debate?
So to be clear, like, I don't actually seek out blood sport type debates. I am interested in having normal conversations, and I compartmentalize with people. So I can have, like, I don't dislike Rob. Like, I think his opinions are wrong, but I don't think he's like an evil person. And I'm definitely not trying to farm clips or farm clout or anything like that. But if you want to take an adversarial tone, I suppose we can go down that road.
Well, we're adversaries. You're a neoliberal shill, man. Like, what? How would a guy like me not be adversarial with you? Your secular values are responsible for the destruction of the United States, essentially.
What did I discuss? What did I say in my discussion with Rob that gave you the impression that I favored neoliberal politics?
Well, because you're a status quo shill. You're going for the typical status quo of LGBTQ rights, egalitarianism, all of the same neocon bullshit and neolib bullshit we've been hearing for 60 years.
Neoliberal politics, in my understanding, is more an economic philosophy.
No, it's not. It's also social policies. Social policies tie right in to neoconservatism, neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, new liberalism, or a new conservatism, which is no longer new, but more product of the 90s, are liberals and conservative holdouts who basically stay about 10 years behind the progressive curve. And that's about where you're at. So you would have kind of the milquetoast fence-sitting position of, well, it's nuanced. It's a little bit nuanced. Yes, it's true that I'm for all the LGBTQ bullshit, but it's very nuanced, my take. But it's not really nuanced.
Well, I think oftentimes in life, things are complicated. And so it's not always as simple as giving a yes or no answer on a question. You have to describe. I mean, certainly you would agree with that, I would assume.
No, I don't. I think that most things are pretty black and white. While it is true that there's nuance, I think that what I call unnecessary progressive nuance is when there's so much nuance that you can't even get to the issue. You can't even get to the issue because it's so nuanced that we have to go through endless amounts of garbage to just get to what it is that we're actually talking about, which is annoying. Everybody hates it. It's one of the reasons why people hate progressives so much is because it's really hard to have a straight conversation with them because essentially almost every other word out of their mouth is a lie.
Well, what would you like to have a straight conversation about today?
Well, let's piggyback off of what you had with Rob Noor on transgender and transgender rights and what it is that you were saying there. Is it your position that we should affirm the identities of these people.
It's my position that I'm not certainly an expert when it comes to like childhood developmental psychology. Do you have a academic background in that sort of a thing?
Well, we don't need to appeal to authority for this. Well, see what I mean by unnecessary nuance? Just give me your position, dude.
My position is that I defer to people that have observed these children in a clinical setting and report the findings.
I didn't ask anything about children. I didn't say a word about children.
Okay, if you want to talk just
I asked about
people.
affirming trans identity. I didn't say a word about children at all.
Sure, that's the conversation that I had with Rob, so I thought that's where you were going with it. But if you want to talk like broadly about transgender individuals, what we observe in the data that I've looked at is that we have outcomes such as less suicidality. And these are things that matter to me more than anything else.
No, they don't matter to you. Outcomes don't matter to you. This is what I mean. Here, let me explain how I know outcomes don't matter to you.
Wait, hold on, just real quick. Do you want to have a conversation where we're like constantly interrupting each other, or do you want to have some time and space to flesh out what we're
If you
saying?
would prefer to give a long form answer, that's fine, but I can already tell you what your position will be. Go ahead.
Okay. So my position, as I was saying, was that it is my belief that people that live an authentic life, a happy life, a life where they don't want to kill themselves is a good outcome.
Let's say unaliving because the platforms we're on.
Sure. Are you on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think it's a good outcome when people take the extreme measure of unaliving themselves. I think it's a good thing to be alive. It's a good thing to be a human being with human consciousness and witness the world that we live in, because I think it's a beautiful world. I've had the fortune of being able to travel and see a lot of beauty. And I want other people to have these kinds of experiences too. And you can't really do that if you want to unalive yourself.
Yeah, the problem with this argument that comes from you progressives is it's so one-sided, and it actually makes no sense if you think about it for 15 seconds. Let me give you a counter position. Let us assume for a second that there was a group of white people who wanted to be racist towards black people, and if they weren't able to, they would unalive themselves. Would you agree that they should be able to be racist towards black people?
No, because the difference in that spot was that racism would manifest as harm to other people.
Right. And so this is the whole, and hang on, this is the hole in your argument.
You keep interrupting
me. I'm going to explain. Well, hang on, let me finish my position here.
Okay, you're the one that cut me off.
The reason that this happened, the reason I asked this question is because it's always the same answer. Well, no, of course not in that case, because there's a greater role of harm. But you never talk about the harm that comes from people having to affirm something they know is a fucking lie. You never talk about that.
Well, can you explain that harm?
Yeah, we can clearly see that these are men and not women, clearly. And so as Christians, if as a Christian, I see, let's say, a member of Biden's staff who clearly is not a female and wants to be called a female, you are actually requesting that I lie. And that would be harmful to Christians, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course he is. Of course.
I suppose I just don't care.
Go ahead, man. I'm just saying, I already know the position you're going to take. Go ahead.
The issue here really is it's pretty simple, right? I mean, there are people that suffer from bulimia, anorexia. We have people that suffer with many mental illnesses. Now, it is never loving to affirm somebody's delusion. Okay, that is not, you don't tell somebody, a doctor doesn't tell a woman who's struggling with anorexia, you know what? You are fat. Let's go ahead and, can we get you some medication to try and, help you lose some weight? Like that's effectively what we are doing with people who suffer from gender dysphoria. And we should treat these people with compassion. I mean, nobody is saying. See, I feel like that they look at us, as people who hate them, that want to remove them from the world, that want to that just want them gone. That's just totally not the case. We want them to understand and know the truth, and to feel comfortable in their body, and not live in a self-perpetuated state of self-rejection, which is what they actually are living in. Right. And it's just not compassionate to tell somebody you care about a lie. And the problem with the harm principle here is who defines the harm? It's like, is it, what if the harm causes a better outcome? Like, for instance, what if a doctor needs to puncture a lung so that somebody can breathe? Like, there's different, the harm principle here. Ultimately, if I had to guess, I would just say that this debate's probably just going to lead to relativism and relative trash. And I can watch this over. I can watch Andrew do this over and over again, man, because it's just so funny to watch him absolutely dismantle these people. They're insufferable, really. Oh, really, what they are is they're number one insufferable, but they're also just lost. They're lost people, and they need help. They need somebody to really make them think. They need to improve their critical thinking skills. Right? Let's dive back in though.
I suppose that would be subjective. If you tell me that you're experiencing emotional harm for the simple request of addressing someone in the manner in which they wish to be addressed, I mean, I take you at your word that you're experiencing harm. My observation of that is that it doesn't appear to be the case that it makes sense that it would be harmful to you. I don't understand that position.
Oh, you don't think so? So wait, how do you know that it's harmful to the black people if the white people are racist to them?
Well, it's not just about how they feel in that moment. When we're talking about racism from
I'm not talking about systemic or institution. I'm just saying that we're
talking about consequences that manifest in all kinds of other ways.
I'm not talking about systemic racism. Don't move the goalpost. Don't move the goalpost. I'm just saying a group of white people who want to say mean things to black people.
The harm
because,
simply how people feel.
You're gonna. I already knew where this is going. It's just going to be. But what about the systemic?
That way.
What about the systemic things which happen as a consequence of that? Well, you would see, for one thing, you'd see the systemic consequences happen to Christians too. But B, I'm talking about a group of people who just want to say racist things to black people, and there's no other outcome. There's no systemic outcomes. You still would be against it, right?
When does it ever end with just simply like words?
Oh, so we're going to do a slippery slope fallacy then?
Well, you tell me.
When does it ever end with just gay marriage?
Language was mainstream.
Yeah, when does it ever end with just gay marriage?
That didn't lead to a lot of larger consequences that go well beyond your subjective experience.
Like gay marriage?
Feeling unpleasant.
Like gay marriage?
Gay marriage is a consequence.
No, as a slippery slope where we affirm that and at least all these other consequences that were completely unintended.
In the case of the slippery slope fallacy when it comes to gay marriages, people were saying for decades that
it would lead to trans people.
They said,
yes.
Well, I don't know if they said that.
Yes, they did.
if we allow gay people to get married, what's next? They're going to want to marry their horses and they're going to want to marry their children.
No, that's not the argument. The argument was
absolutely the argument.
That's a straw man. That's just a straw man. It is a straw man.
Absolute. Okay, sure. We can agree to disagree on that.
No, we're not going to agree to disagree. You're not going to weasel your way out.
Make the argument that allowing gay people to marry would mainstream bestiality and pedophilia. You can say that didn't happen all you want. I've witnessed it. I've observed it.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yeah.
So they weren't saying that what would happen is that next they would target children, which is exactly what they've done through the trans agenda.
Sorry, give me a second.
That's not what the slippery slope was about. Now you're going to change it. You're going to change it to only be one category. Hang on, let me finish, man. I just let you finish your spiel.
Bro, you are literally aggressive.
Just let you finish your spiel.
Okay, sure.
How can you then take this straw man and say only the one position and not the other position? There was a whole horde of conservatives who were saying, no, this would turn into targeting children for the purposes of indoctrination into the LGBTQ lifestyle. We see this social contagion everywhere in society. And what do we see? Well, a great uptick of people identifying immediately as being LGBTQ, which is something that Rob pointed out to you. The numbers don't even make sense. It's such a social contagion. You have people identifying as this thing who clearly aren't into any type of same-sex dynamics whatsoever. They just do it as some broad form of solidarity. It's a social contagion, clearly.
Okay. So when we're talking about like slippery slopes, again, when we go back and we look at the rhetoric that the religious conservative movement was using in the 80s and the 90s when the conversation about gay marriage started to emerge as more and more mainstream, it was absolutely the case that they were saying that a culture or a society that tolerates homosexual marriage would inevitably lead to other what they would call abominations or examples of degeneracy,
which it has,
like bestiality and pedophilia,
or furries, or any other number of other degeneracy, which has come as a consequence of accepting this form of degeneracy in society. The goalpost is ever moving.
Somebody who wants to dress up like a furry creature and do all that stuff has no impact on my life. So it just doesn't matter to me.
I know.
I think that's the difference between...
It is the difference between, because what you do is you do, as a consequentialist, you just ignore. You say that you're really adjusting for outcomes, but you're not adjusting for outcomes. I just gave you a negative outcome which affects the majority of people on planet Earth. The majority of religion on planet Earth is Christianity. So maybe I misspoke. Not people, but the majority religion. Huge, vast, overwhelming percentage of people in the Abrahamic faith are against this, and asking them to lie to affirm this has to be doing them harm. It has to be. You just don't give a shit. However, if I were to change this back around and say all things equal, if there was nothing which was systemic, it's just that, let's say for a second that a bunch of white racists just wanted to say the N-word to black people without, there wouldn't be any systemic, any consequence. Is that okay for them to do?
So far as I understand, you can use racist language.
Yeah, I'm asking you if it's okay I'm asking you if it's okay if you think people should be able to do that.
Broadly speaking, I agree with freedom of speech. Yes.
Okay, so do you think it's a moral position then for these white guys to call these black guys that name?
Is it a moral position?
Yeah. Is it immoral for them to say that?
I think morality is up to each individual. And in many cases, it depends on what religion they follow, if they follow a religion. I personally, it would violate my morals to use a racial slur.
Right.
If somebody else is going to use a racial slur, it's up to them if they think that is
why
immoral.
Would it violate your morals? Because of what?
Because I don't believe that people should go out of their way to use harmful or hateful language.
Right. So you think it would cause harm, right? If you use that language.
If you use a slur directed at somebody for their sexuality or their race, that could do some harm to someone's
So couldn't it equally do harm to somebody who felt like they were being forced into a position where they had to lie in order to maintain social normalcy?
If they say so, I'm saying I don't understand that. I take you at your word that your subjective experience is feeling harm.
Let's assume that they're wrong. Let's assume that they're completely wrong about everything they believe. It wouldn't matter. They believe that it's a lie. So therefore it does them harm. Yes, whether you agree with that or not, this is like you said, this is subjective to their experience. If it is subjective to their experience, and that's what emotions are, it would be doing them harm, right?
Sure, and according to their subjective experience. I take you at your word that it is an uncomfortable, painful experience for you, psychically or emotionally, to affirm someone's gender identity.
So then they ought not do it if it does them harm, right?
My principle as someone who believes in liberal democracy is that we should structure our society in a way that people can be free to be who they are, and that we should incentivize people to be respectful of other people's perspectives. I don't want you foisting your religion on me. I have no problem with you practicing your religion. I have no problem with people benefiting from Christ's consciousness. I've personally seen people turn their lives around because they found Christ. I went through an edgelord atheist phase when I was younger, and I would have said different things. I would have been outwardly hostile towards people like you. I've had a complete shift of heart. I don't want you to not feel comfortable in this country for the same reason I don't want somebody who's trans to not feel comfortable in their community.
This has nothing to do with what I'm saying. I don't care about your emotional state. I want a direct answer to my question, right? If it makes a person feel, if it makes a person, if they think they're lying by affirming this, ought they still affirm it?
In my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you want people who think that they're lying to lie anyway to make this other subset feel better. However, if the roles were reversed, you would not allow that. The racist is thinking, from his perspective, is also telling the truth and would be lying by not doing X. And yet, in that case, you would say, no. What is the distinction here if unaliving, in principle, is equal to both groups?
Are you telling me that the act of asking or in some cases requiring a Christian to affirm someone's chosen or expressed identity would be analogous to the harm that trans people experience as a result of the social stigma that exists still to this day.
There's a great reframing, but since
wait, no, hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
You made the comparison.
I didn't. I gave you. I literally am trying to show you where your logic entails, and you didn't answer the question. You didn't answer the question.
You're redirecting the conversation to be one about the harm that a Christian person would experience personally from affirming a trans person's identity. I'm asking you, are we seeing like similar suicide rates for Christian people that have to force these sorts of things? Has any Christian ever had the thought that they wanted to unalive themselves because they are being asked to affirm a trans person's identity?
Tell me something, sir. Which racial group has the highest unaliving rate inside of the United States?
I don't know the answer to that question.
If you had to guess,
I would assume white people.
And which demographic is the most highly religious inside of the United States when it comes to Christianity?
Is it black communities?
No.
Is it white communities?
Well, it might be Hispanic now. But you see, very simple. Hang on, stop, bro. But just like how Hispanics are often categorized as white, which they are on much of the census information, okay?
Sure.
Yes, that particular demographic, whereas the black demographic has almost the lowest suicide rate, just so you know, the lowest unaliving rate. These rates obviously do feel that they are oppressed, and that they are being oppressed, or that there's some sort of social stigma against them, because when you dive into why it is that they're unaliving themselves, they seem to either talk about the stigma that's against them in the court system, inside of society, things like this. So my question becomes this, ultimately. If Christians feel like they're lying by affirming this, you say they still ought to, because you feel like the harm that it does is such that they should lie anyhow to make this other subset feel better. However, if we reverse the roles again, and we were to take whites who were, doing this towards blacks, you say in that particular instance, what? That they ought to or ought not to?
They ought to or ought not to use slurs?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, they ought not to.
Because the harm principle, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Now let's reverse the roles again. Let us assume for a second that it was black people using these slurs overwhelmingly towards white people. Do you think that those people are doing a greater amount of harm, and that they should be allowed to do that? They ought to be able to do that.
I don't know how to quantify that kind of harm. I think it's wrong to use slurs against somebody for being a part of some group, whether that be sexual preference or gender identity or race or religion. I generally, broadly speaking, don't think that using slurs is a good thing, because
if you don't know how to quantify it, then why in the world would you make the ought claim that it should or shouldn't be done in the first place?
Can you try to reframe this in a way, because what you're saying makes no sense to me.
Oh yeah, it doesn't, huh? Well, let me help you out.
No,
you just said based on the utils.
Camera, by the way.
Based on the utils of
fuck, it's doing this.
Mm-hmm. Based on
do you curse on YouTube, by the way?
Yeah, that's fine. Based on the utils of harm, you just got done telling me that you could not actually quantify this kind of harm. And yet when I say...
Nobody can.
Right, but yet when I ask you, if that's the case and Christians are feeling harmed by this, should they lie anyway and take the harm for the other subset, you say yes. So if you can't quantify it, why in the fucking world would you say that they ought to do it?
How could I possibly quantify it?
Then why are you making an ought on something you can't quantify, lunatic?
You don't need to quantify the broad concept that using slurs could do harm to somebody else's well-being. Why do I need to give you a specific
Because what about the
percentage?
quantification of the fact that if a person, it feels like they're lying, that obviously does them harm. You agree that it does them harm. You just say we can't quantify who's being more harmed, but they ought not do it anyway. That's insanity to me.
I'm not begging you to affirm people's identity. That's the difference. I'm not going to sit here and beg you to do that. I think in most cases that's a waste of time.
Yeah, but you believe that it's morally wrong, right?
Speaking, for my moral.
Yeah, but how could it be morally wrong for you if you can't quantify it?
I'm not making the case that I'm trying to change your mind. I have no sense that I could do that in the first place. This is just something that I think, generally speaking, people should do. You're trying to compare.
Why? You can't quantify it.
You brought up suicide.
Why shouldn't they do it?
You brought up unaliving rates with certain groups. Surely you must understand that the group that has the highest unaliving rates in the world are trans people.
So you can't. So wait. So you can quantify it?
Let me just ask you, as a Christian, when you hear of large numbers of one group that want to take the drastic measure of ending their life, which to me is a horrible tragedy, does it stir anything in you? Does it make you sad?
Yeah, I would prefer, of course, to not see people unaliving themselves.
Okay, great. We found common ground.
Now that I've answered your question, can you answer mine? Again, you refused to. I just gave you a direct yes/no answer.
Yes.
Very direct, very concise. So let's try this on your end too.
Okay.
If you cannot quantify the harm done by either group, why would you make the ought? Why?
I'm saying I can't get into granular, specific detail and tell you, okay, this harms people 97%, or this harms people 68%. I'm talking about broad concepts. I don't know why you're getting hung up on trying to assign what, like a specific number or percentage?
No, because because here's how your brain works. Your brain assigns a harm doctrine. Thing harmful, thing bad, yes?
In many cases, yes.
Yes, okay. Thing harmful,
yes.
Thing harmful, thing bad. So if it is the case that thing harmful, thing bad, then we would need a way to determine which thing's the most harmful to be the most bad. And then we ought not do that thing. In this particular case, I ask you, great, we have this thing you say we ought not do. And you say, but we can't quantify it. So then I ask, why ought we not do it? And you go, I don't fucking know.
What I can tell you is that you must be aware that trans people are at the highest risk of any group of unaliving themselves, right?
Of any group of unaliving themselves? You mean like per capita?
Literally.
You mean per capita?
Yes.
Yeah, that could be true.
It's anywhere. I've seen many numbers that go up to at least 50% of people have either attempted it or actually tried to go through with it. I'm asking you, as a Christian, would you be interested in taking steps that maybe, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, might bring those numbers down?
Yes, that's why I would advocate for some kind of social stigma towards the behavior.
Is there any evidence that pursuing a policy of social stigma is going to reduce the rates of...
Well, I'm so glad that you asked that question.
Let's go. All right,
let's go back, if you don't mind, to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Can you tell me, do you think that the level of teenage unaliving was higher or lower?
I don't know. You tell me.
What if you had to guess?
I assume you're going to say that it went higher, so I'm going to guess with that.
No, they were lower.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Now, if that's the case, if it is the case that in the 50s and the 60s that the unaliving rate of these kids was much lower than it is now, and it is your position that there must have been... Stop, let me finish.
People?
Yeah,
no,
trans people. Yeah, if it's your position that there must have been just as many trans people alive then as there is now per capita, right? And this is how you would account for the rapid uptick due to the lack of stigma. Then can you explain why they weren't unaliving themselves then, even though there was no doubt that the stigma was 100 times higher than it is now?
I have no idea how reliable your data is when we're going back to the 1940s, when being an open out trans person was way less common for obvious reasons.
So wouldn't you expect to see the unaliving rate of those people had such a stigma against them to be much higher?
I'm saying I'm questioning your data because I don't know how we could reliably
answer my question. Would you expect to see it higher?
Data because I don't know how anybody could reliably go back to the 1940s and then speak definitively on unaliving rates for trans people.
I didn't ask about the unaliving rates. Stop. I didn't ask about unaliving rates for trans people.
Listen, if you look,
you're straw manning the position.
I would like to have a conversation with you where
then stop straw manning me.
allow you to say the things that you want to say and just let me speak.
Okay. You know how we can do that the easiest way possible? Here's the easiest.
Stop fucking cutting me off.
That's true. But here's how I can stop cutting you off every time. You have this.
You just choose not to.
No, I'm going to tell you. You have this obnoxious habit, and what you do is this, and it's a very low-tier debate habit from low-tier debaters. You'll give them a position, or you'll give them a standard. You give them something like that, they'll stop. They'll reframe, they'll straw man the position, make an argument, and then I have to go right back and clarify it. So hang on, stop. I'm almost done. I promise it'll get way more respectful after this. It'll have to. You'll see. If instead you actually just argue the position without reframing it, without straw manning it, without any of that, I'll never have to cut you off.
What position specifically did I straw man you on?
Well, so in this case, I asked specifically about teenage unaliving rates. You brought up, I don't know how we could track trans this and trans that. Answer to the teenage unaliving rates first before you jump ahead to something I didn't actually state.
To be fair, I thought you were talking about teenage trans people.
Which is why I cut you off.
Confusion.
That's why I cut you off.
If you want to talk about higher rates of teenage people unaliving themselves, we're talking about an incredibly complex issue with so many different variables to consider, not least of which the fucking internet and social media, which is making everybody less happy. So I don't know what you're ascribing this higher unaliving rate to. It seems like you want to point to what you would call degeneracy, so homosexuality or transness. I don't know how you could leap to that conclusion when there are about 10,000 variables. You would necessarily.
Well, let's start with the variable of the internet. You realize that the internet is a recent convention and that these unaliving rates were increasing before it ever existed.
Sure, I'll take you at your word for that. But
so we can take that off of the table, right?
Wait. Would you seriously dispute that the internet is contributing to higher levels of depression?
Yeah, in some cases it is, yeah.
Okay, so then we don't take it off the table.
Why would wait?
It doesn't matter if something was trending in one direction. Something can come along and contribute to that trend.
Yeah, but we can control for
strike it from the record.
Yeah, but you do realize we can
already a trend.
Yeah, but we can control for the variables, my point.
How are we going to control for these variables?
Because if the trend was already up before there was an internet, then we're controlling for the internet variable and saying, well, we can take that off the table. The trend was still going up. So what are the other variables then?
I mean, where do you even want to begin when we're talking about variables?
Let's begin with the fact that there was more stigma then.
Is on the decline. Then sure, we can do that. Okay. Or we can talk about social stigma.
Let's try it this way. We'll try it a different direction. Do you think that there was more or less social stigma around divorce in the 1940s and 50s than there is now?
Obviously more.
Obviously more. And do you see the trend of divorce going up or down as stigma against it has decreased?
I'm not sure if it's flatlined around 50%, but it certainly went up since then.
And since stigma has been going down since the sexual revolution, which way did it go, up or down?
Which way did what go now?
Divorce rates.
I would assume it went up.
You would assume it went up because the stigma went down, right?
It logically follows.
Logically follows, right? So that's what you would expect to see. So shouldn't we see the exact same trend with LGBTQ people?
Sorry. Let me just repeat back what you're saying to me. You're saying that because there's less stigma now around LGBTQ stuff.
But the suicidality is higher. That's very strange to me.
Well, I don't know if you could pin it entirely on one thing or another, and I don't know if you can understate the importance of a phenomenon, of a human advancement like the internet. It just throws kerosene on everything. So I'm not. I don't want to.
That's why we just controlled for the internet. If we took the internet off the table, we'd still see the same rates via stigma both ways.
You're making the case to me, and it feels just prima facie just absurd that if we increased stigma levels towards like queerness in this country, that unaliving rates would go down. And you're trying to make the case that this is a thing by going back to 1940, but wholly ignoring any number of other variables that we would consider.
Which is why when you bring up each individual variable, I'm willing to engage with all of them, like I did your major one, the internet, by showing you that the stigmatization still increased regardless of the internet being here or not.
Sure. I mean, I think that there are a ton of reasons why a lot of people are feeling a sense of apathy, a sense of malaise, or it might even escalate to the point of depression. People are.
Hey, so I just wanted to stop the debate real quick just to say that this entire conversation exposes the fatal flaw in secular liberalism, or the whole secular liberal position. Really, it collapses into pure subjectivism, pure subjective preference with zero, and I mean zero, foundation. He claims we should affirm transgender identities because it reduces harm and suicide, yet when pressed on the harm done to Christians and others forced to lie and participate in what we see as a delusion, he just shrugs and says, I don't really care, or it's subjective. He pivots to racism analogies, but can't quantify or consistently apply his own harm principle, and that's kind of the issue with the harm principle, is that who's going to define it? And it also, is some harm good in the pursuance of a greater good? Those are good questions to ask when somebody tries to bring up the harm principle. 1 minute, slurs are intolerable harm to him, yet the next, compelling millions of religious people to deny biological reality is just no big deal. You're basically his morality boils down to just my preferences, as Andrew would say. And it's like his preferences should also guide society because he prefers it. Like there's just no epistemology, there's no objective standard, right? And that's kind of the issue that Andrew keeps pointing out to these people. And I could watch him do it all day, to be honest. It's just so funny. But Christian conservatives, I think, we just don't play these games. We ground morality in the unchanging logos. The God who created male and female, who reveals truth rather than polling feelings or something, right? And in this endless philosophical online arena where every idea is sort of dissected in these sterile lights, I just think that the Christian conservative comes with roots that hold. That actually hold. We've watched the secular experiment play out. This sort of untethered reason devolving into power games, radical autonomy producing loneliness epidemics, and progress, right, that keeps redefining human dignity until it means nothing at all. The bottom line, in my estimation, is that Christianity grounds it, right? It grounds all of it. The Logos became flesh. Truth became personal. Morality was revealed in a stable, a cross, and an empty tomb. Freedom without virtue is just ultimately elegant slavery. And let's hop back in the debate. Like and subscribe, by the way.
Feeling more isolated. This is a sentiment that we're hearing from people all over the world. Religion is on the decline. That served a useful social utilitarian purpose for centuries.
Still does.
It's sure, and it still does. When we're talking about things like this,
far more than secularism. Secularism offers us nothing.
Well, I mean, it offers you nothing.
It offers you nothing. What does it offer you?
So I can't get this fucking camera to.
Secularism can't even fix your camera for you.
No, bro.
That's God. That's God messing with you, bro.
True. Secularism for me just.
Why don't you take a minute? Take a minute, collect your thoughts, get your camera situated. I'll still be here.
I just can't get this fucking camera to say. All right, you might have to see the top of my head here. Okay, where did you want to go with this?
Well, we were discussing all the things that secularism brings to the table.
So for me, secularism allows a system like liberal democracy where you can have multiple religious ideologies or otherwise philosophies intermingle and exist within the same system.
Oh, is secularists who brought us that?
I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to convert anybody else. I have found my own philosophy and sense of morality that works for me. And if you get that from Christianity, that's fine. That's good. That can exist in a secular structure.
Yeah, I know. But what if?
Why I favor?
Wait a second.
I don't think it's because. Let me just real quick.
What happened?
Religion or another is going to be able to successfully convert everybody around them. It just doesn't work that way. There's no historical precedent to suggest that that's a sustainable system.
What's a sustainable system? You cut out for a second.
This idea that you should force through legislation or extreme coercion or violence, force people to adopt your religious framework. I favor a system where many religions can flourish and communities can benefit because of this flourishment, and secular democracy can do that.
Well, then let us go back to the roots of secular democracy. Was the secular democracy, which you just appealed to in the United States, brought to you by secularists, or was it brought to you by Christians?
If you're talking about the founding fathers, many of them obviously believed in the Christian God.
Which ones didn't?
And it was a spectrum.
Name one that didn't.
Probably all of them. But there was a spectrum of belief at that time. You had people that practiced these orthodox versions of their religion. And then you had a spectrum go all the way to deism, which at the time was emerging as this way more popular philosophy. It was taught to the intellectuals at that time. It was booming in popularity. And so when we talk about like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, these people believed in sort of an absentee landlord version of God. So even if they practiced
they believe in God?
Christian, yes.
Oh, well, that's so strange.
If people, I don't know why you're saying that's
because
strange.
You said that secularists brought this to us. Doesn't sound like secularists brought it to us.
You can have religion in a secular system. A secular system does not mean...
But that wasn't your claim. Your claim was that secularists brought us this system.
I don't think I ever said that.
You did.
Though.
In fact, let me. I can tell you right back what you did say. You keep on freezing, bro. I don't know what's going on. But
you asked me what secularism does for me. I never told you that atheists, I never told you that atheists gave us secularism.
Okay,
you just mentioned straw man a moment ago.
No, that wasn't a straw man. You said the reason you embrace secularism is because it allows for enlightenment, egalitarian values. Very strange, because it was not secularists who brought enlightenment, egalitarian values, sir.
What does that matter?
Well, it matters because you're kind of trying to make the bold claim that Christianity itself is adversarial to these values. Now, it should be adversarial, but the Protestants here have not ever been traditionally adversarial. They were the ones who brought it.
Your version of Christianity, a theocratic state, something...
When have I ever asked for a theocratic state?
Maybe I misinterpreted. If you could tell me what your ideal form of governance would look like in relation to your religion, if you want to clarify, then I'm all ears.
Yeah, it would be a synergistic relationship between the church and the state. Like, for instance, are you aware that in England they have a Church of England?
Yes.
Okay, are you aware that at our founding, that all of our colonies, all of them, post-founding, still had a state religion?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you know why that was the case?
Explain.
It's because secularists have no moral authority or autonomy. They have a do as thou wilt harm principle. So they can't really make ought claims. They don't make any sense. You say that secularists should be in charge. I say secularists should not be in charge because they have no moral or ethical epistemological foundation to make ought claims on anybody to do anything at any time, ever. They have a bizarre live and let live policy, which is really bad for governing a nation.
I did not say that secularists necessarily need to be in charge. I have no problem if a Christian is elected president of the United States, even though I don't practice Christianity.
As long as he does what?
So long as they serve the country in a way that lines up with my ideal version of governance.
Secular values.
It could be, but right. It could be a Muslim. It could be a Christian.
As long as he rules as a secularist, you don't care.
Sure, yes.
Now tell me what's actually immoral. Now can you? Yeah, great. Now,
yes.
Yeah. Now tell me what's actually immoral about the religious ruling from a religious prism and enacting law based around their religious values and not taking secularists into consideration at all.
I'm not making moral judgments about like what you would prefer. If you live in a Christian town and you guys democratically decide to pursue policies that line up with your Christian
let's say
ideology,
they didn't democratically do it.
Fine. That's just the way it is.
What's wrong if they don't want to democratically do it? What if they authoritarianly do it? What's your actual moral claim against that even?
Because my preference is democracy.
Oh, your preference. So your moral claim is your preference?
Isn't that what this conversation is about?
No.
I thought this was going to be a conversation about what system you prefer versus what system I prefer.
And inside of a system of preferences, there should be some type of ought or justification for it outside of, because I want that. I just want that.
And
your moral imperative is my preferences.
Who is strawmanning who now? I didn't say that.
You said you want it because of your preferences. That's it.
I did not say that I prefer secularism simply because I prefer it. I can give you reasons why I prefer secularism, and
outside of your preferences. Let's do it.
I told you that my preference is a system that allows for multiple types of people. And when I look at America as a democratic experiment, I see success all over the country. It's not a perfect country. We could do better, but I see success all over the country. I think this is a really good system that we have here. This is a system that allows for people like you and me to exist and have the same
now I need
right
you to
vote,
know.
for example.
I need you to note this. And you can go back right this second. You can rewind your own tape and you can see it for yourself. You said in the span of 20 seconds, I did not say that my preferences are the thing which I am appealing to for why it is that I want this form of government. And then went on to say, but my preference is this form of government. So are you appealing to anything external to your own? Stop. Are you appealing to anything external to your own preferences, or aren't you?
No, I would appeal to social utility and my idea of what would be good in service of that goal. I was pushing back against your take that I want secularism simply because I want secularism.
And why ought we follow social utility?
I have my reason. We ought follow social utility because I believe in pursuing a system
because of your preferences. I believe
that would be, in my opinion, the best outcome for individuals that exist within that system.
So that's your preferences again.
I try to maximize good outcomes according to what I believe, as I assume you do.
Those are all your preferences, bro.
What are the differences between you and me? You have a preference.
I have epistemic justification for knowledge. You do not have epistemic justification for knowledge. You can't justify how you even know a thing, let alone why we should govern with that thing. So as we move in to your preferences, my preferences, it's your preference that we follow your preference. That's your preference, right? But
it is
it's my preference that we don't follow your preference, and that's my preference.
Great.
That's what you want?
That's the whole point.
So then how do we make the determination as to who is right?
We would get into the minutia of why we think our systems are better than the other person's system.
Because of our preferences.
Exactly.
Well, if it's just because of if there's no justification outside of what is preferable to the individual, it's my preference that I rule everybody. What's wrong with that?
That is your opinion. I disagree.
Well, wait a second. You can't disagree. Yes. My preferences are just as valid as yours.
I'm not disagreeing that you have a preference.
Yeah, but what makes it less valid than yours?
Best outcome for the people that live within this system.
What makes my preference less good than your preference?
When we're talking about something like affirming identities, we're talking about unaliving rates. We're talking about this thing called social stigma.
Yeah, what makes my preference less viable than your preference?
I'm trying to give you an example. So in this specific case, that is an outcome that I don't like. I don't like seeing people.
That's your preference again.
Unalive themselves.
Your preference again.
Or experience something like deep depression because of social stigma.
Don't you understand how ridiculous this is? Every time I ask you, why should we appeal to your preferences instead of mine for moral oughts? You say because it's my preference that you do so every single time. I believe you're saying my preference. Everything is my preference, my preference, my preference. Do you have anything that you can justify this on outside of you? Should all moral oughts come from Hutch's brain and his preferences?
Brother, the justification that I'm giving you are things that exist outside of my experience. I'm not talking about my individual experience in this system. I'm talking about a system that most benefits everyone.
And why should we follow a system that benefits everyone?
Because we all want good outcomes in accordance with our philosophical underpinnings.
So our preferences?
Yes.
Yeah, so then you're appealing to nothing more than your individual preferences. All of the world's morality and everything in it comes from Hutch's brain and his preferences. That's what's moral and immoral. Then give me a moral justification external your preferences and why we should follow them.
I believe that all morality is subjective. We don't derive it from, or I don't derive it from Scripture. I derive it from my experience as a human being. And my philosophy, the one thing that I try to lead with is empathy. That's it. And this is something that I was taught when it came to scripture, when we learned about Jesus' teaching. The two main rules that he gave was love the God your Father and love your neighbor. So even though I don't subscribe to Christianity at this point in my life, I still gleaned valuable lessons from the teachings of Christ. And I carry those teachings.
But that's all subjective preference, right?
Yes.
So if it's all subjective preference and you can appeal to nothing outside of your own preference, Hutch's preference is the way the world ought to be because that's how he prefers it to be, then Andrew Wilson wants the world to be this way because I prefer it that way. Can you tell me why I'm wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think
not wrong.
Everybody has their own subjective take on what morality is.
So my preference then is just as valid as yours.
Morality from scripture. So sure, it's valid. I'm not going to tell you it's invalid.
So if my preference is just as valid as yours, then how can you not agree? You just said it's just as valid as yours. What's there to disagree with?
What can I not agree with?
How can you disagree if my preferences are just as valuable as yours? How in the fuck could you disagree with them?
When we're talking about this sort of thing, what I'm telling you is that I don't doubt that you believe that your moral system is correct. So in that sense, it's valid.
No, you're saying my moral system is correct.
No.
Yes.
Not according to my
I'm sorry. That's so weird. I thought your preference was that all preferences are equal. Therefore, all moral systems are correct and equal.
No, I'm saying everybody has their own experience with these sorts of things.
Wait, what? Hang on. I'm sorry. Are my preferences valid or not?
They're valid in the sense that if you tell me that this is what you believe, I'm going to believe you. That doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with what you are proposing in terms of
so then my preferences would be not as valid as yours, right?
No, I'm not saying that. No, everybody has their own perspective. It is not up to me to tell you or anybody else that it is invalid. Do you understand that?
No, I don't. Listen, that actually makes no sense. Here, I'll help you.
You want to live in a world where you can just tell me that this or this thing is invalid, and you'll probably
let me help you out.
This sort of thing.
Let me help you out with this so that you understand. There's Aztecs who are cutting out a man's heart on top of a pyramid, and they're going to kick his corpse down the steps based on their preferences.
Sure.
Are what they are doing immoral?
According to me,
according to you and your preference. Hang on. Let's just walk through it so I can show you this so that you understand. According to your preferences, right?
Preferences is like one word, but sure, we can use that word.
So if it's immoral that they're doing this according to your preference, they ought not do it according to what you prefer, right?
They ought not do it because I don't think that snuffing out somebody's life before it's their time to die is a good thing.
Based on
human beings. My philosophy,
your preference,
is that my philosophy is that to be a human being on this planet is to be given a tremendous gift to witness what we can witness here. And because of that, I want everybody to experience the same thing that I've experienced when I go to like Yosemite, for example. And you can't do that if you sacrifice someone on an altar because it's an eclipse or something.
Is that because you would prefer that they don't?
Sure, yes.
Can you appeal to anything outside of your preference?
No, not really.
So then great. No. So then if they justify and say this is our preference and we appeal to nothing outside of our own preference, how could they possibly be wrong?
They're wrong according to me.
Yeah, but you're wrong. Point. Okay, I get it, but that doesn't actually make sense. Because unless you're saying that your preferences are the ultimate arbiter of all morality, then their preferences have to be just as valid as your own, sir.
When we use words like valid, I'm telling you,
you're not going to answer to it.
When we use words like valid, I'm not telling you that I think it's the correct thing to do. So if I say your experience with morality is valid, that's not the same thing as me saying I think that would be best for my community, the country that I live in, the state that I live in, etc.
Is that a subjective preference?
Is what a subjective preference?
That when you say X, that means Y.
Can you relate that back to what I just said?
Yeah, we'll relate it back to what you just said.
Yes.
Try to understand this. If
Yes,
you make the claim that your preferences, the ones that you want to see all oughts derive from your preferences, that would mean you would be the ultimate authority and arbiter of what is moral and immoral. If you are to say that somebody, stop, let me finish. Okay. If you are to say somebody else's preferences are just as valid as yours, that would be saying that they also are the ultimate arbiters of what is moral. So either one of you are wrong or both of you are wrong.
So I think where we're missing each other is I don't pretend to be the arbiter of morality, the ultimate arbiter of morality in this country, in my city, in the world. I don't expect that everybody follow what I believe in. I am not trying to foist that on everybody around me. You seem to think
I don't
that's what I am
understand. That has
lobbying
nothing
for.
to do with what I just said. Let's assume
You
for a
just said
second.
a moment ago, you just called me the ultimate arbiter.
No, dude,
arbiter
this
of
is just a
morality.
logical extension of your position is what I'm trying to show you. Regardless of if you don't want to be the ultimate arbiter or you do want to be the ultimate arbiter, you believe that all morality stems from your own preferences, right?
Everybody has their own subjective experience with morality.
And are yours better than theirs?
No.
They're not, right? Then all morals are equal then.
I'm not saying that I don't think that there are certain philosophies of morality that I don't consider mine to be better than. I'm not saying that. But I'm not
which
saying
ones are better than yours?
But I'm not saying that I necessarily believe that I'm right about everything or that I should decide how a society should conduct themselves morally.
Oh, okay, got it. So then you're not going to make any ought claims ever again about how society should conduct itself morally, right?
No, I'm going to tell you my preference.
And should anybody ever follow your preference? Should anybody ever follow it?
My preference would be, for example, that people respect someone's like preferred pronouns. That's my preference.
Got it. Should people follow your preferences?
Of course, I would like to see that, but
they ought to do that.
I don't delude myself. Have that like same level of comfort. I can just simply tell you
I get it. I understand. I understand your position. Ought people follow your preferences?
Position
ought
it is doing more harm to you.
Ought people follow your preferences or not?
I would like to see people in this world live a life that is
still not answering the question. It's a yes or no question.
Empathy.
It's not even a loaded question. Ought people follow your preferences or not?
That would be my preference. Yes.
So yes, they should follow your preference, right? Should they follow your preference above everybody else's?
That's a personal decision that everybody has to make.
That's not my question. Ought they follow? You don't know if they should follow your preferences, but you just said they should.
I reject your premise because my goal is not to proselytize my personal sense of morality to the world.
You just got done saying people ought to follow it. What are you talking about?
But I don't go into it with the expectations that I can force that on everybody.
So everybody ought to follow your moral preferences except everybody who shouldn't?
Oh my God, bro. I feel like we're getting very lost in the sauce.
We are, because I keep on trying to explain this simple concept.
Very different concepts to each other right now.
Do you know why Rob Knorr told you to talk to me when it came to this stuff? This is why. Because he knew that you're a dumbass and you need to be educated on this. So that you understand, I'm going to try to help you out. This is why it's becoming a circle. It's a lot of fun to do to you, but you're caught in a logic trap and you can't get your way out. I'm not going to let you out until you make the concession that you're the ultimate arbiter of all that is good.
I would never say something that insane. Do you understand that the level of ego required to make such a claim is just astronomical? I have no sense that I'm going to be able to like realistically change your mind or anybody else's mind. I thought this would just make for an interesting conversation.
And it has. It's made for a great conversation.
You went straight for the blood sport stuff. Like
it's not blood sports. This is basic stuff. You want to get into a theological debate with somebody who has epistemic justification, and when they ask who the ultimate arbiter of morality is, you say you, but also not you. And to explain how you're saying that, I'll explain how you're saying it. I will literally explain it to you. How you're saying that is this. If you say, my preferences are things everybody ought to follow, which you just got done saying, by the way. I asked you that yes or no. You said yes. It would be my preference that they all did. If I say to you then, somebody else over here then has a different set of preferences, that means they ought not follow those, right? You say no. That's called a performative contradiction. Makes no fucking sense. Either they should follow your preferences or they should not follow your preferences. Which one is it? It's called the law of excluded middle. Either they must or they must not. They ought or they ought not.
I think the difference between you and me when we talk about our preferred system, you seem to take the position that you would like to, whether that be through coercion or maybe state intervention or, as you said a few moments ago, stigma, or I'm not sure what other incentives you would use, but your ultimate goal is to convert as many people to your belief system as possible.
Should people do that?
And I'm saying that is not my goal because it's not realistic. I don't go into this kind of conversation with the expectation that I'm going to change your mind. I'm not out there on the streets trying to convince everybody, hey, my way is the right way. According to me, I need more evidence than what I was given to believe in something like a Christian with Christ consciousness or how it's benefited your life. I'm not going to tell you that that's a bad thing. I'm not going to try to change your mind. If that's working for you, great. That is the promise of secular liberal democracy. We can all exist in the same country without it being necessary to completely convert everybody in the country.
Should people follow secular liberal democracy?
I mean, sure, that would be my preference, but I'm not gonna waste my time trying to force everybody into that position.
Relax. I just let you go on your whole spiel. I didn't interrupt you once. Just answer a couple of questions. Should people follow liberal democracy?
That would be my preference.
Okay, for everybody on planet Earth?
Ultimately, yeah. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So anybody who doesn't want, this is a should claim, remember you just said they should, anybody who does not want to follow liberal democracy then is doing something that is wrong or immoral, right?
It might be less than ideal. I would say it like that.
So wrong.
These things are not mutually exclusive. If I say it's less than ideal,
okay. I'll just grant you the language. I'll just give you the language. It doesn't matter.
There could be what I would consider like wrong examples of theocratic states.
Got it.
There could be other examples.
Less than ideal. Fine. Less than ideal. We'll use liberal democracy. Everybody on planet Earth should follow liberal democracy, or it's less than ideal. Less than ideal meaning bad, at least
according to my preferences.
And is there anybody on planet Earth, anybody anywhere, who could ever trump that preference that's bad? Is it always going to be bad? Should they always follow that according to your preferences or not? So if they have a preference against it, they have to be wrong because they're doing something bad, right?
When you talk about these things, you talk about it in a very absolutist sense. And I'm saying there are gradients. It's a spectrum. So I don't believe in like ultimate bad.
Logic is not a spectrum. Logic has 3 rules. Do you know what they are?
No.
No, you don't know the 3 rules of logic.
No.
No, okay. Not one rule. Not the law of excluded middle, not the law of identity, not the law of non-contradiction. You don't know any of those.
No.
No, you don't know any of them. So how in the world are you... How in the world could you ever make a should claim if you don't even know the basic rules of logic?
I'm just trying to have a conversation.
Let me ask you one more question. Let me ask you one more question. This is how I have conversations with normal human beings. This is how I have conversations with normal human beings. You would appeal to science then and empiricism?
Of course.
Okay, great. Tell me what the scientific method is.
You develop a hypothesis and you test the hypothesis. And there's scrutiny from other people, this sort of a thing, yes?
I'm waiting for you. What's the scientific method?
Finish it for me.
You finish it. You're appealing to it. Finish the method.
I'm a little hazy on it. Would you finish it?
You appeal to the scientific method. You don't even fucking know the scientific method.
When we talk about science, we talk about things that we can establish as... We talk about things that
Look at the big brain on Chad. Holy shit. I appeal to science. What's scientific method? I don't know. I just can't even believe this is happening. I just can't even believe it. I really can't even believe it. How are you this dumb, bro?
I'm not going to knock myself for forgetting something that I learned
that you
school,
appeal
like,
to for everything. You appeal to all of your domestic policy decisions.
No, I don't.
You appeal to everything
for everything. Why are you assigning me this position?
Bro, I just asked you, would you appeal to science and empiricism for your positions? You said yes. I asked you scientific method. You don't know it.
Not for literally everything.
Okay, like, what thing would you appeal to?
I wouldn't use science to determine whether or not I like the movie.
Who would you appeal to?
Myself.
And are you the ultimate arbiter then of if the movie was good or bad?
No.
No.
If you like the movie and I don't, it's fine. That's my position.
This is fucking hilarious.
Andrew Wilson, I swear it'll just never get old. It is so fun to watch him absolutely dismantle people. If you guys like debates like that, I post on debates all the time. I do in-depth breakdowns. This is a new project for me, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, and leaving a comment, I would really appreciate it. And I hope to see you on the next one.